What's up, everybody? This is Late Great Game Reviews. I'm Apollo, your host, and this week we're going to be reviewing Metro Last Light. It's the sequel to Metro 2033. That came out on PC back in 2010, I believe. It's based on a novel by Dmitry Glukhovsky, a Russian novelist, and it's the sequel to that game. Um, it's basically pretty. I I'm gonna just lay it out right now. I really enjoyed the first few hours of the game. The rest of the game I really did not like. It just kind of progressively got worse. Um, and let me describe the whole game. The basic premise is, about present day, about now in 2013. The world is basically the entire it's a global nuclear war essentially, and most of the population is killed. Most of the population in the whole world is killed, and those that survive in the metro, in the subway tunnels, and subway stations underneath the ground. That's how they survive. Going up to the surface is lethal unless you have a gas mask, which you are provided at times when you go up to the surface. You play as the main character. Who you play as is Artyom. He's a ranger for the Polis. There's several factions. There's the Polis. There's the Nazis. There's the Reds. There's the Hansa. And they're not exactly clear on some of the things, like who exactly the Hansa are and who exactly the Reds are. Like, it's clear that they're communists, but it's just kind of they don't really explain too much in that, so it's a little vague. But basically, they're warring factions, and the overall sort of umbrella concept going on in the game is that they're gonna be going to war, right? And that's kind of the concept, is that there's very few. They say that in the game they announced that there's only about a quarter of of humanity left, and so so there's only a quarter of humanity left, at least in Europe, because the game takes place in Europe. So there's only about a quarter of the population left, and they're gonna go to war. And if that's the case, then that would be the last world war. At least in Europe, right? So it's kind of interesting to see these little scraps of humanity that are left. These small factions could essentially just wipe out all of Europe. That's interesting. You got some interesting stuff there, because honestly, most of the interesting good stuff is just there's small things. There's small things. There's not much story. The story's really not. There's not much of it. There's not much characters. There's no character development. But I mean, the things like the environments. The environments are beautiful, just gorgeous environments. Really, they're sort of hauntingly beautiful. They're obviously ravaged by the nukes and all these things. And you fight other factions throughout the game, other people. You also fight when you go up to the surface, you fight creatures, like mutations and stuff like that. That can be pretty insane. And there are some very intense, fun moments in the game. When you and your partner are running, you and your AI partner are running, and you're being pursued by these beasts, and you got to fight them off. It can get pretty intense, and there are also some moments where some genuinely terrifying moments in the game. Fighting some of these, like, minor spoilers, fighting some giant spiders and scorpions and stuff. That's not really scaring me, because I play Fallout, and I love that series. Unfortunately, this game is nothing like that, but that's not what was really scaring me. What it is like the inside the nest, you can see like the eggs like pulpating, and you're hearing the sounds, and it's pretty gross. And yeah, there's also some other things, that are pretty creepy. Again, very minor spoilers in this movie, but they're in this video, but there will be a few. And the other creepy thing is that you kind of see sort of like ghosts, sort of like memories from the past, like sort of just, I don't know, like just splashed into our world for a second. It's weird. It's kind of hard to describe too, because they're not exactly ghosts, but it's kind of creepy. They do some creepy things, and again, the environments really help with that. The settings really help with that. I enjoyed the parts of the game that I enjoyed the most were outside, honestly. And yeah, I enjoyed the first few hours of the game, but honestly, after that, it just got progressively worse. I mean, there were glitches. Like there was this one terrible glitch, just really pissed me off because basically what happened was, and this says something else about the checkpoint placement, which is terrible. Is that I'm in a firefight, I end it. I start moving forward. There's more enemies coming at me. Before I engage, I engage them, right? And in the middle of the firefight, not before, in the middle of the firefight, it checkpoints, right? That's apparently the checkpoint. The problem is that suddenly all the enemies stopped moving. They stopped moving, and then I couldn't move. But the game wasn't frozen. It was still going, but I couldn't move. And then it checkpointed again as it's all frozen. So I reloaded my save, tried it again, and it just kept doing that. And they would just stick me right there where no one was moving, I wasn't moving, and that was the whole thing. And so I had to start the whole chapter over, and that really pissed me off because that was like a lot of stuff. But back to the main game mechanics and stuff. It kind of gives you the choice, kind of, to either do stealth or take a stealth approach to your enemies, or to take just a guns a-blazing approach. Stealth is usually the better choice. The problem is that you don't have a lot of stealth capabilities. Like, you're not Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell. You can't whistle to distract the guards. You can't, you can take out lights and stuff, but the guards, the AI is pretty bad, and they just kind of stand there, and if you basically take out one guard, you might be able to get away with that, but if you take out two, most of the enemies are going to come flooding in. And they're not going to know exactly where you are, which some games do, which I'm glad this game didn't, but it's still, honestly, the fact that this game gets progressively worse, and I just cared less and less about the characters, the story, and everything as it kept going, and it really did drag on. It's not a very long, I mean, it's like 10 hours, but it felt way longer, which is never a good sign, but, it just really... Yeah, after a while, I just went in guns a-blazing all the time, because I was just trying to plow through the game as quickly as possible. Yeah, so, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so, I just went in guns a-blazing after a while, because there's not a lot, you don't have a lot of stealth capabilities, or really any, There's a few, but I mean, there's really not many. And so they say choice, but it's kind of a facade of choice, really. Yeah. So, yeah, the atmosphere is great in the game. It's great. But the dialogue is passable. It's passable, but I'm sorry. Let me. Not what I meant to say. The voice acting is passable. The dialogue is terrible. It's absurd. It's ridiculous, and they overuse the word bitch like constantly. And I'm not saying like towards women. No, I'm not. they use the word bitch towards you. Like the enemies will say, "Oh, let's get this bitch," and "Oh, I got the bitch," and this bitch. Like every firefight I came across, like they would keep saying, and I was like, "This is just weird." But there's a lot of other stuff besides that. But yeah, but some of the things that the game sort of emphasizes or it tries to is the sort of a survival aspect of it. It's not survival horror, but it's kind of survival because you need when you go up to the surface or you go through spots of radiation, you need a gas mask, and on that gas mask you need a filter, and you need to replace those pretty constantly.